A very good evening and a warm welcome to all the participants, our resource person of the day, my esteemed colleagues, and people who have joined outside Delhi. Today we are here on a national webinar on Techno Driven New Age Entrepreneurship under the aegis of Institution Innovation Council chapter of our college. IIC has been formed as an initiative of Ministry of Education to foster the culture of innovation and startups, creativity in our higher education institutions. And conducting webinars is a regular feature as a part of IIC. Today we'll be talking about Techno-Driven New Age Entrepreneurship, and the resource person for today is Mr. Shreenivas. He is the Chief Architect and Managing Director at State Street India. Although State Street India doesn't need any introduction, but for some students who are not aware of it, I would just speak few lines about it. It's State Street Corporation is an American financial services and bank holding company with its headquarters in Boston. And it's the second oldest continually operating United States bank. And our resource person hails from State Street only. In his current role, he is leading the application development, agile office, and the software engineering functions of institutional services line of business of State Street. He is also responsible for delivering some of the key transformation initiatives in automation and artificial intelligence area globally for State Street. He has about 20 years of experience in technology and the financial services domain. And prior to this, he was working at Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Citigroup, and TIPCO Software. He has Masters in Computer Science from Oregon State University and an MBA from a top-notch school, Indian School of Business. Now, without much ado, I would request our resource person to deliver his talk on Techno-Driven New Age Entrepreneurship.
Within the organization, right? And then you also are looking at new ways of working together. Previously retail companies and aspects of organization, if you wanted to buy glasses, right, and you wanted to buy a frame for eyeglass, you'd want to probably go to a store and take a look at how it fits on your face and then go ahead and buy it. Now you see at LensCraft and a bunch of other things, they will give you an exact experience of how a particular frame will look on you. And then you will be able to make that purchase on their website online, right? That's just one example. There are a bunch of other things that are happening in the immersive experience space. Workspaces are getting redefined. All of us are working virtually, and the emergence of new age of workspace is happening in the area of digital work stream. So you see that second work stream really getting increased at a very fast pace. So that's the second work stream. And the thirdly is the mesh work stream. What we call the mesh is the connectedness of the all of the technologies and all of the devices. You take IoT, you take any aspects of the world has really come together into a much smaller place, right? So there is a lot of interconnectedness that has happened, right? And that is basically the third aspect of the evolution in technology, right? These three major evolutions that have happened in the last 4 or 5 years really is driving the next set of entrepreneurs, right? And some of the technologies for the future, like quantum computing and aspects of things that we are looking into areas, nanotechnology and things like that, right? All of those things are driving the next set of opportunities for the entrepreneurs. So as an entrepreneur or a to-be entrepreneur, what are you looking for is this is the time where you have the best opportunity from a technology perspective, a platform that is available, and democratized for anybody previously, if you had to set up an entrepreneurship organization or a business, the barrier to that was huge, right? The amount of infrastructure, the amount of capital, the amount of compute that you needed to bring, data, all of those things were huge. Now, all of those things are being made available to you on various platforms. And all that you have to be able to do is stitch these together with your idea, that unique idea that you bring to the table. Take that idea and make sure that you establish that interconnectedness on these platforms that are available to you, to all of us today, right? So if you look at it from the time, this is the best time and for entrepreneurs to start quick, to actually fail quick and learn quick and restart quick again, right? Because you as an entrepreneur, you can precisely focus on your idea and the implementation of idea rather than all of the other barriers that used to happen before this technology evolution that really has happened in the last 7 years, right? So the next 20 years, how do we look at it from that perspective, right? 2030 to 2050, right? You're looking at this technology developing at a much faster pace. Artificial intelligence, as I talked about it, is going to mature into artificial general intelligence. That means a lot of aspects that we are doing today, a human is doing today, can be delegated out with some sort of assistance to artificial intelligence engine. Robotics, aspects of cloud and big data, augmented reality, IoT, quantum computing, the amount of compute that is needed for some of the applications, can be that we need today can be easily met with the quantum computing evolution. And we already know Google has, one of the, has already talked about its quantum computing capabilities, that it is working on and has made some really headway into, right? So that area is going to really, get fast paced in the next 10 to 15 years. Telepresence, I would call tele everything, right? Telepresence, tele everybody, now it's no more location is not a hindrance. We already see that with this pandemic, and we have been able to, actually without much of an impact, especially in the technology space, we've been able to drive good amount of value and productivity even with the pandemic there, right? I think that's going to take the next level, right, in terms of where we go in the next 10, 15 years. Drones, you already see drones coming all the way, whether it is delivery mechanisms or bunch of other things, right? Drones are playing a large role today in our defense capabilities and a bunch of other applications like that. But you will start seeing them playing a very significant role in everyday life as well, right? Driverless cars, autonomous vehicles, autonomous entities that will be playing a major role in the next 20, 30 years. So the next set of technologies are going to drive a lot more opportunities for us and a lot more ease of use to really focus on certain problems and create some business models, and create value for the organization, or create value, into the ecosystem that we live in today, right? Now, when we look at these technologies as, our most traditional view of technologies previously has been very linear and a very separate view of it, right? So for example, artificial intelligence has been there for the last 50 years, but it has only become the core of everything in the last 10 years, right? and it took so much amount of time for it to come to that maturity, right? Because we were pretty much looking at artificial intelligence from a linear and a separatistic view perspective. But the emergence of big data, right, the emergence of cloud really brought in artificial intelligence to the foreground, right? Now, artificial intelligence really needs some aspects of data to be there for it to learn, right? Unless that data is not available, where is your model going to learn from, and how it is going to learn from, what is it going to learn, right? So the emergence of big data and the availability of data and the availability of the compute really brought artificial intelligence to the fore, right? So basically, if you look at it, if you're looking at these technologies in its own narrow view, you will not be able to figure out the impact that it is going to generate for the next 20, 30 years, right? But when you look at it from a synergies perspective, you integrate these synergies and bring them and look at it from that perspective, right? Then you will be able to see and realize the power of these technologies when they are brought in together. For example, right, take the example of drones and artificial intelligence and robotic manufacturing, coming all together, and the power that it can create to solve any problem that you can look at it, right? I think that is going to be the future that we are going to see in the next 10, 15 years. And as an entrepreneur, you should be able to look at these technologies and see how do you figure out the synergies between these, how do you integrate these technologies to solve the problem that you have encountered, right? Or to implement an idea that you have already put in place, or that has been running in your minds for some time to solve certain problems, right? So that's the a view of how you go to the next level in terms of how technology can drive entrepreneurship, right? And that is already happening, right? So let's quickly move now from, so that was so far, I kind of talked about the pace at which technologies are going forward, the pace at how do we look at the synergies of these various technologies and stuff like that, right? But now let's go towards the entrepreneurship, right? Both are evolving, and let's look at it from that angle first as well, right? As technology is evolving very fast and is driving innovation and creativity, right? What you also see is, and there is a strong correlation actually, right, between these two. What do you see is, you see rising entrepreneurship, right, across the world. And I've just put some stats here, right, on the right hand side of the slide. You will see the stats for India, right? In the last 3-4 years, India has seen about 50,000 startups, right? These are government registered startups, right? And you are seeing the growth of those startups somewhere between 700, in 2016 to about 20,000 in 2021, right? That's the curve in which we are growing, and we are not yet at the end of 2022, and you will definitely see that curve going up, from 3,687, right? But the entrepreneurship landscape is really booming now, not just in India, but across the world, right? And you see that in the left-hand side of the slide, this is a slide that is done some research on small business trends in 2021, just for the US, right? And I want to talk a little bit about some of these things. The impact of COVID on small businesses, right? It has been great. It has been fatal for some of the businesses. But if you look at this particular slide, you see that the expecting to survive COVID ratio there, 78% of the small businesses expect that they will survive the pandemic. Their business will survive the pandemic. And how do you think that ratio is really that high, right? Or that percentage is really that high? Majorly because of the emergence of technology, right? The emergence of virtual platforms, the ability to do contactless business, right? And that has really helped the small businesses, right? Of course, there are areas where it requires high touch and it requires a lot of, in-person, and contactless business becomes really difficult, right? Those are the 19 and the 4% that you look at it, right? But 78% of the businesses expect, to weather the COVID impact and go forward, right? That's one of the metric that I wanted to call about. The second one, right below that, there you see the happiness coefficient of small business owners. Why do you think the entrepreneurship is really rising, right? And there is a very good correlation between the happiness coefficient and the entrepreneurship. The small business owners today, about close to 50% of the small business owners say they are very happy, right? Close to 70% or a little more than 70% say they are somewhat happy or very happy, right? The whole aspect of being able to run their own business, becoming independent, and living their dreams is really also driving a lot of individuals across the globe to go in that direction and become an entrepreneur, right? You see the age range below, you see millennials, you see Gen X, Gen Y, varied ranges of age. You see a startup, a CEO being for a startup in their 20s, and you see in their 50s as well, right? I think, and across male and female owners of these businesses, right? Close to 31%, female ownership of these businesses. That's a pretty good number. I'm pretty sure it's going to go up quite a bit in the next 5 years, 5-10 years. But I think that's a pretty good number right now itself, right? So I think those are the aspects of certain stats. This is the landscape. This is a growing landscape. Aspects people have realized, that entrepreneurship can be very beneficial and can be very satisfactory as well and fulfilling, right? And those are the two things that are coming together, along with the platforms that already exist from a technology perspective to take you to the next level. And that is what is driving the rising entrepreneurship, right? Now, let's talk a little bit about what entrepreneurship is, and I want to talk a little bit about this because this is important for us as the next generation of entrepreneurship. And this is where we really put in our efforts, right? It's about creating value, right? But it's about creating value by putting in the time, effort, and all of the taking in the associated risks, whether they are social, financial, and all of that, right? And that basically is called, right, entrepreneurship. And in this case, some of these things have become a little bit more easier, is what I would say. This is the traditional definition of entrepreneurship. But then the time and the effort that was devoted previously to create the platform for implementing your idea was way large and was a bigger barrier, 5 to 10 years before than now, because technology is evolved pretty much very fast. You have a cloud platform, you have all of the predefined, what I call AI, ML solutions, data already available, everything is packaged there for you to be able to really stitch it out together and create a prototype of your idea, right? The amount of effort and time that was previously required for a startup to get to a point of market their product was way larger than before. Today, it is a much faster and a much quicker approach to market, right? And that has really changed. So the value that you can create in a much smaller span of time, right, is very important now. And it's becoming, and that span of time is really reducing quite a bit. And that creates both competition and also increases the value that you can generate out of your idea, right? If you're the first mover, if you have the first mover advantage and you move fast with your implementation to the market, you can grab a lot bigger share of the market, right? I think that's basically, if you're able to reduce the time to get to market, that's basically what you're doing, right? A bunch of other things that it helps with is, the effort that is needed. Now your effort is more focused on creating a business model, focusing on aspects of things that you need to do for your business to take shape and grow, rather than actually, working on the back-end aspects of it, the technology aspects of it, or the implementation aspects of it, right? That's become much more easier nowadays with the evolution of technology, right? Now, because we're talking about technology entrepreneurship, now I wanted to quickly talk about two things, right? There are today you see startups in various verticals and various spaces and various functions, right? Primarily, you can divide them into two things. One, entrepreneurs who are basically developing the technology, right? Now, this is unique technology. For example, take Google. Google developed the search mechanism for the web, right? That's development of that technology. But then that search mechanism, was used by a bunch of other people and bunch of other use cases in various application areas, and new businesses were created on top of that technology, using that technology, right? Similar to, all of the things that you will see within, for example, major software, enterprise software players, right? Folks who have actually created, the whole cloud, right? AWS was the start of that, really, right? And then, a bunch of other players, Microsoft, Google, have entered into that. And today, the cloud drives a lot of startup ecosystem, right? Because nobody needs to really have infrastructure, servers, data centers, all of those things. They can just go ahead, get an AWS EC2 instance with whatever they need, whatever type of technology they need, whether they need, any aspects of AI, ML, or any other aspects of open source frameworks and stuff like that. They can get that on their EC2 instance and develop their application and host it and run it from there, right? I think that is one aspect of entrepreneurship, right? The development of the technology itself. EV, you see the electric vehicle motors, Tesla and a bunch of other companies who have put in the research work to really bring in that technology and democratize the technology as well, right? I think that's another use case that you can talk about. The second one is the technology users. You see a vast number of startups in that space, right? A lot of folks you see are basically using the technology to get to the next level, right? I think, and that is where I think, a lot of application of technology happens, right? So let's look at some of the players in this space, right? Now, this is, so a quick guess from anyone, right, on what are these startups, right? These are the unicorns that were fully, incubated here in India, right? Which entered the unicorn club, right? In 2021, these are all the startups. What is a unicorn? A unicorn is a startup which basically has $1 billion evaluation, right? Valuation, basically, right? And these are the startups from India which made it into the unicorn club just in 2021, right? And take a look at it, and you see various companies here, Bharat Pay, Cred, Digit, right? These are, businesses in the financial services world, Coin DCX, right? These are all financial services startups, right? What they actually do, they have a very strong digital backbone, right? They have a very strong, they use the technology to implement their idea for in the financial services world. For example, Cred, right? And we see all of those, commercials across the TV channels today on Cred, pay your credit card with Cred, right? Now, that's a unique concept of how the founder has, had the idea of aggregating all the payment of various credit cards through a funnel, and that funnel becoming the Cred app or the Cred, service, right? And basically, that it is an application of technology, in the financial services world, aggregation of these payments to various credit cards and banks going through that one channel, right? I think that is majorly what I call the usage of technology in a certain area or for a certain problem, right? Instead of, if you have 4 credit cards, that you have, and you have to make those payments, instead of making them all on different platforms and different applications or different websites, you could probably do that with credit card, aggregate all that, make your life simple. And that is what is the aspect of thing that he's, that particular organization is selling. And then you benefit out of it. You basically get reward points, and then you can use that to get something else and things like that, right? So that's something that one organization is doing, right? Pharma Easy, right? Now, gone are the days where you had to go into a pharmacy and get your medicines. You basically can sit at your home and basically ask, order for all of your medicines, schedule it and ensure that they are delivered on the right time at the right place, all of those things. That's another area, again, a very similar approach in terms of having a strong digital backbone. That means these are applications and these are organizations which have been enabled by technology, right? They are technology users, really creating, using the emergence of technology, the cloud, the artificial intelligence platforms, the data, the connectedness, all of those things, and putting it all together to solve a problem. And the problem is to deliver medicines, to somebody at their home, at their doorstep, right? That's the problem, basically, right? And that's the kind of startups you're looking at. And then more unicorns, right? If you look at this, and this is more or less a global unicorn map, but what you see here is you see a bunch of technology developers. Docker, it's a containerization solution of how you can deploy applications within a container and actually move it, across platform areas, across cloud, cloud as well, across cloud providers as well, right? So that's a technology, creator or a technology developer. And that is basically helping a lot of these guys, the guys we saw, the platforms that we saw on the, or the unicorns that we saw on the previous slide. Basically, most of them use Docker container technology for deploying their apps. Nutanix, it's a data center, and server technology that they bring into the mix. Cloudera, it's a big data enterprise software organization. Atlassian, it's a CI/CD and continuous integration and delivery kind of an application that they bring in. These are all technology developers. MongoDB, GitHub, right? SpaceX, talk about SpaceX. These guys are developing the next generation technology to take civilians to the space, and it's already happening, right? It was a recent announcement about civilians going into space that Elon Musk did, right? I think those are the folks, these are the guys who are developing the technology. So if you look at it, you are looking, when you're looking at your entrepreneur journey, there are aspects of things that you need to put your ideas in, whether you are a technology user or a technology developer. And each of those paths are very different, and the problem, the way you solve it is very different. If you are in the basket of technology users, then you have a different skill set and a different mindset for your entrepreneurship. But if you are a technology developer, then you have a very different approach, and you have a very different mindset again, in taking that idea to fruition, right? And your timelines also are very different. For a technology user, right, it is very important to get to the market as soon as possible, because there are probably 10 other people or 100 other people who have a similar idea and can use the same technology that's available out there and get to the market, right? But for a technology developer, your timeline can be a little more relaxed. I'll not say relaxed, a little more than than what it could have been in terms of a technology user, right? So those are aspects of things that you need to understand, while you're dealing with your idea to take it to the next level, right? Now, quickly, I'm just wanting to see how are we doing on time, because I wanted to leave out certain time for questions.
We have 10 minutes, Srini.
Okay, perfect. So this is my last slide actually. And what I wanted to talk about here is, so what we did was we talked about how technology is evolving, right? How fast paced it is, what's the next 20, 30 years in technology, and how do we look at it from, not from a linear and separate view, but look at it from integrated and a strategic synergies of these, bringing synergies of these technologies together, right? How do we take advantage of that, right? We talked about that. We talked about what entrepreneurship really is all about. And then we talked about, the various aspects of technology entrepreneurship, right? Whether you are in the space of a technology developer or a technology user, right? I'll close the session and open it up to question and answers with talking a little bit about the top trends in entrepreneurship, right? Now, you see this here, and you see a lot of technology in here, right? The first and the top trend I would call in the technology entrepreneurship, or in the entrepreneurship world today, is emergence of low code, no code websites, apps, right? A lot of code had to be written previously. If you look at it, most of the technology entrepreneurs, take it Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, or, who initially had the PayPal platform, all of them were computer science engineers. They all had to write code. They developed their prototypes and had to write code. But if you look at the new generation entrepreneurs, they really don't have to write code, right? There is a lot of technology that is available there, which you can use low and no code to be able to get your concept and create your prototype. lately, natural language enabled solutions are also coming into play. There is OpenAI. If you have ever look at it, Google OpenAI, and there is a platform called Codex, which basically will help you. If you write a statement, it will convert it into a piece of code. There is something like that in that space that I've been, exposed to recently. It's called natural solutioning language. They have their own platform. You don't even have to write code. You basically have to write a sentence with certain entities, and it will create a solution. And there is a runtime for natural language solution to be running on that particular platform, right? These are emerging now. So that means, and that is becoming the latest trend in terms of entrepreneurship. Email, I think we know email, has been there for a longest period of time. We thought it was going away, but in terms of marketing, in terms of lead generation, in terms of selling, email is becoming trendy again. And one of the major things that has evolved in the last few years is that 73% of the millennial population, prefer to get email communication rather than anything else about products, their favorite businesses, bunch of other things like that, right? So email is playing a very critical role again in that space. So as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to know these trends and take advantage of that. Micro influencers, right? Now, of course, a lot of advertising and all of that happens on various channels and all of those things. But today, micro influencers are playing a big role. These are folks in YouTube and folks on Instagram and whatnot platforms that are there, and they have a following of 100K users or 1 million followers, and they talk about a particular product or they talk about a particular service, and that gets sold to their followers and all of that, right? So micro influencers are playing a large role today in taking the advertising to the next level. Content for multiple formats, multiple channels, various channels, and you need to, as an entrepreneur, be able to cater to all channels and be open to all of these formats of how you can put your idea on or your product in, right? Aspects of communities. How do you take care of network? Bring in a strong network. There are networks that are emerging across the world. Silicon Valley is a very good case of that network, use case of that network, which is probably not recreatable, but you see that happening now in India to a certain extent in various pockets, in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, in Gurgaon, in areas, in certain pockets in India. You see that happening, right? Subscription-based models. Gone are the days when you sell the product and it's perennial and for life, right? Now are the models, the way the business models are, the financial models are emerging. It's all about subscription per year, per month, and so on and so forth. There is a constant revenue generation that is coming from one stream, while you can put your research into another stream and create new product lines and stuff like that. Social awareness. Think about it, right? I think today it's become such a small world. Social awareness is the key for entrepreneur, right? Aspects of political awareness, aspects of social awareness, in terms of climate, being carbon neutral, and bunch of other things. One wrong step and you can see a large user base or customer really go away from your product. So displaying that social awareness is becoming the key, and you can actually talk to your customer base, displaying that social awareness and create different pockets of customers there. And then finally, digital nomadism, right? Looking at it from a larger perspective, especially after the COVID pandemic hit us all. Now, talent is not there at one place, it's across the world. And organizations are now, startups specifically, are willing to take that risk of hiring a developer probably somewhere in East Europe or in India, very remote, or anywhere across the globe. That aspect of picking up skills and going to the place where there are skills is becoming more common in that area, right? So with that, what I will do is I'll stop my sessions, and we can go into a few questions and take it from there. But then the punchline that I want to leave you all with is, as the next entrepreneur, you need to look at two things. One is, what is available for you today from a technology perspective, and how to make the best use of it, right? And put those pieces together. And two, what is your idea, right? At the end of the day, you can have the best platform and the best technology, but what makes it out there is your idea. So what is the problem that you're solving, right? And what is your idea, right? So that's where the real value comes from. And in today's world, if you have the right idea, right, I think it has become much more easier and much more possible to live that dream of an entrepreneur. With that, I will stop and take questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Srini. It was indeed a very insightful talk, and where you took all the practical concepts, starting from how technology has really changed our lives, and like we can see it in pandemic, how the entire platforms have been changed. And then you've given very nice examples from India only, that how not only technological advancements are there, but entrepreneurship is also growing at such a rapid rate. So obviously, and then you've talked about how interconnection of different platforms, like where technology is even giving us open source platforms and very, magical things. Like, as you said, it's a code free, and you just simply write a statement and you can get a code. And so you have online open source platforms, but how do you interconnect them to make use for your purpose? How do you identify a problem, and how do you use them to serve that purpose? And where the timing is also very important, I suppose. Your timing, your idea, and how do you implement it?
Correct.
So that's the main thing when we come to entrepreneurship. And you really talked about all the practical concepts. I think it would be very interesting and very insightful for the participants. Let me see if there are any questions. I would request all the participants to please write the questions in the chat box if there are any. Your talk was probably very nice, very well structured, simple. So apart from thanks, we don't see any questions. I would like to ask one thing.
Sure.
Would you really count micro-influencers as entrepreneurs?
Yes, I think definitely.
I always get confused. Like for me, there's a very thin line. Like, would I want to use it as a part of my advertisement and marketing, or would I call micro-influencers as entrepreneurs themselves?
Yes. I mean, you're right. I think it's a very thin line. And if you look at it from a definition perspective, they are actually using a platform like Instagram or like YouTube and whatnot, and generating that specific followership, based on the content that they create, right? And the followership.
Howsoever the content may be.
Howsoever the content may be. Absolutely, yes. And that's good or bad. You're right? And right or left, right? But they're creating that, followership, which is bringing, value from that followership, and they are extracting value out of that followership. So you're right in terms of calling them entrepreneurs as well, right? But I think are they taking it to the next level is the question, right? I mean, the value that can be generated to that, from a micro influencer is very finite, and I would say bounded, right?
This is what I was coming to. Is what I was coming to.
Yes.
in terms of when we are talking of how much value they are adding. Like,
yes.
So that was the entire point.
Absolutely.
So in the meanwhile, we have a question. What is the right age to become an entrepreneur?
There is no right age to become an entrepreneur. Frankly, I think you will see that there are entrepreneurs always. Some of the folks who have become entrepreneurs way beyond their retirement ages as well, and you will see that, and you will see folks who have become entrepreneurs right after their college. Or some of the dropouts you see right from college and becoming an entrepreneur. I think it is not about the age. It is about more about what exposure you have had and how do you use that exposure to solve a particular problem, and the opportunities that you can take in that time frame. I think those are the aspects of things that really drive you to become an entrepreneur rather than age. Age is just a number, right? So
broader the repertoire, better your opportunities to become an entrepreneur. Because
absolutely.
If your horizons are better, you have more exposure, you have more chances of knowing and actually seeing the problems and trying to solve them.
Absolutely right. That's so true.
They also want to know some books on how to start a startup. Pooja Malkani wants to know some names, some famous names.
Yeah, I think there are some real books about there's one book about which goes through. I'm not recollecting the name, but which talks about 31 entrepreneurs in India and their journey of their entrepreneurship. Right, I've read that book. I'm just missing the name, but I think you can just Google that. There is a very good book which kind of walks you through their thought process and which walks you through their entire journey, from ideation to a point of when they went to the market. Right, I think it's a very good book, and I would definitely suggest that as the first one to read.
There's another question from Ankit Das. How can we generate our initial funding? I think that's a totally different domain. It's about crowdfunding, bootstrapping, angel investments, then venture capitalist.
Absolutely.
Probably if you would want to elaborate a bit.
Yes.
Srini?
Yes, sure. Absolutely. So I think here's where, I think that space also has been evolving quite a bit, right? If you see, 10 years before, really, there were not that many platforms which were funding. They were big venture capitalists and private equity firms and stuff and things like that would really put in their capital only way beyond after a certain stage of your idea becoming an implementable product and all of those things, right? In the last 10-15 years, that landscape has changed quite a bit, right? That landscape has really changed quite a bit, right? So definitely the first part of it is you as a founder, as an ideator, you need to put your own capital, certain aspects of it, whether that is work, time, effort, ideation, and certain aspects of things that you put in. But then there are a bunch of other platforms. There is an angel funding platform, which is the most initial stage of funding that can be generated. And then
I think social media comes there also.
Absolutely.
It comes to your rescue even for that.
Absolutely. And there are quite a few crowdfunding things that you can do. Then you can actually go on to what you call a series aspects of funding, where you go into, and there are firms which actually do funding at a very initial stage, and there are firms which do funding for your growth stage. So there is a whole aspect of layered funding that you can go, when you are a 1-member team, and when you're a 10-member team, and when you're a 100-member team, and each of those areas of funding, can be explored. And then finally you go IPO, right? I think that's the final dream of any startup. right? But that has evolved quite a bit, and it has made it capital very, very accessible for a good idea today.
There are certain answers to the books. One of our esteemed colleagues, Professor Arpita, she's telling the books. It's Connect the Dots by Rashmi Bansal, and also Startup Diaries by Neeti Jain and Gagan Jain. Yeah. And there's another question, I think, somewhat related to what I talked about, micro-influencers. They're saying startups are perennially becoming social media centered only. Or production also stands a chance?
No, absolutely, it does. You take I think social media based startups are much more easier, right? I think, and the timeline of how you can get to a point of go to market and generate value and profitability, it's a very condensed timeline, and hence you see a lot of folks opting and going for that area. But then,
here I would like to ask: do you think they have a very short lifetime? Sustainability would be a problem.
Absolutely, right. And sustainability is definitely a problem there, right? Unless and until the idea is really strong and the impact by that idea is is much more broad based, right? Sustainability becomes a problem. Absolutely. Right. So it's a short-lived idea. It's a short-lived phenomenon, and it stays there for some time and then goes down. Right. Now, how do you, sustain that idea for a longer period of time requires certain aspects of innovation that you need to create, whether that be a business model innovation or whether that be multiple products that you drive within that space. Right. So that's the area, and that is why you see a lot of startups in the social media space. But then there are actually good startups and good in the energy space as well. In the clean energy space, in the solar energy space, in the electric vehicle space, in the rocket industry. Yeah. Now you already see that, but what has happened with that is they take a lot more time. When Tesla was there, for a short period of time, people called Elon Musk really crazy. Right. But then he had problems all through the journey of Tesla getting into production mode. At some point, he confessed in some of his interviews that he actually thought Tesla is not going to be there the next day. Right. But then see the value that has been generated by that particular organization. Right. And I think that's the important thing that we need to bring in. Ideas such, though difficult to implement, create a much larger impact in the world and for the planet as well, right? And I think social media is probably a smaller way of how do you create value, and a much faster way of generating certain value, but sustainability is definitely questionable there.
Thank you so much. It indeed was a great pleasure. I personally enjoyed it a lot and looking forward to much more interactions. On that note, I would request Rajkumar ji, the head of ICT, have we taken enough of screenshots?
Yes, ma'am. I do have a screenshot.
About the participants and about the panelists as well?
A screenshot for the panelists as well as for the participants, ma'am.
Actually, Mr. Srini, actually, this is a requirement to be submitted to the Ministry of Education. So we have to be careful about that.
Sure.
So I extend my heartfelt gratitude, not only to you, but to the entire participants who would have connected from different parts of the country, it being a national webinar. Last time we had much more response. I don't know, because of the link problem this time, the response is slightly bleak or meager, I would say, but hoping for a better response next time. Nevertheless, it was enjoyable and insightful talk. And I'm so thankful to you on behalf of the entire organizing committee of ISC, Council of a College. I extend you thanks and a blissful day to all the participants and to you as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Glad to be here and really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you.